favorite, Simon?
Well, I did say Firouzja, I thought was going to be the favourite if it came down to this time limit. I'm not really sure why I said that, to be honest, but I honestly think this is just a throw a coin. They're both amazing Blitz players, so, it really is 50-50, I think.
Yeah, here we go. The Blitz has started.
It has started, and it's the English opening. Black's bishop coming out now. White just pushing a pawn forward. They'll just get developed. They'll get their pieces out into the centre and transfer the battle to the middle game. Very sensible strategy, especially in Blitz. You don't have to think too early in the game. You just develop. You just kind of, control squares, control the centre. And what do you guys think about this choice? Firouzja, if I remember correctly, actually used this opening in the candidates tournament against Ding Loren. So Firouzja sticking to something he knows. Magnus, of course, knows everything about the openings. All of them, pretty much.
I think it's a wise choice by Magnus. I mean, I think the English is a good opening, but this is more like, try to get a small advantage, keep all the pieces on the board, and just push. And here you get a space advantage. This is quite a nice structure generally for White to have. But, of course, Black knows his stuff as well here, creating some problems with that pawn. But I don't know. I like being White in these positions, personally. So I'm a bit biased in White's favour.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, Jovanka, is this game still following Ding Loren against Alireza Firouzja?
It still was following, and then yes, no, not anymore.
OK, White pushes a pawn, defending the centre. But either way, I mean, whether or not Firouzja is following that game, he will have studied the ideas from the Black side. Look at Black's clock time as well. Barely spent a second. Firouzja, up to this point, continues pushing, trying to destabilise White over there on the queen side, on that left flank. And Magnus, will he react, I was going to say, by pushing a pawn, blocking things up, or more dynamically, getting the White pieces into gear? And Simon, you like this because White has more space, White has slightly better development right now in the centre. White's knights look pretty good. Yeah, I mean, they call it, it's a bit like what they call a Maroczy bind setup, which is where you get this light square bishop pointing towards the middle and controlling the middle with a bit of extra space. And White is also, as you mentioned, a bit better developed here. Black's got to get those queenside pieces into the game. And I can also see White having a half-open file, a weakness that Black has in the middle of the board, that pawn being a problem. I mean, these are just little things. Black's got, obviously, good pieces and counterplay as well. So it's still in the balance, really. Early days, as yet.
Yeah, definitely early days. And it kind of feels like White has the slightly better long-term prospects. And Black, of course, has a very solid position and active pieces. And I wasn't expecting this move from Magnus. I was expecting the B-pawn to push itself up one square forward.
Yeah, I mean, Magnus is not scared of basically doing some damage to his pawn structure here, because if Black ever takes with his pawn on the side of the board, he's going to have the better pawn structure in the long run. So all he has to do is go pawn takes pawn, and White's pawns are then separated and they can never connect, as we see here. So long-term wise, actually, Black has the better position structurally here, but pieces are all on Magnus' side, so it's a bit of a double-edged situation at the moment.
Yeah, and Black's pawn's compromised as well. When Firouzja allowed that trade of knight for bishop, Magnus kind of frowned, he grimaced. He was like, oh, that doesn't look good for you, mate. I've seen that face before when I've made mistakes, blunders against Magnus.
It must be so off-putting.
Yeah.
You play a move and you get the grimace.
Every move I play, Magnus is like, but either way, White's got full control.
Yeah, I mean, look at the dark square bishop, I was about to say. I mean, this is what, the grimace. White's dark square bishop is just cutting across the board now, and it looks like a fantastic long-term piece. I mean, yeah, something went wrong there for Black, definitely, in that little excursion.
Yeah, and he actually has the option of getting the bishop pair as well. Well, Alireza is desperately going to try to double his rooks along the A-line just to attack a potentially weak pawn. But is this kind of enough to offset everything else that's wrong with his position?
It doesn't look like it. It looks like the real action is actually going to happen towards the Black king. As Simon mentioned, White's dark square bishop is the unrivaled minor piece. It's pointing towards that Black king. Sooner or later, White also has that 4 versus 3 pawn advantage on the king side. They'll step towards that Black king. They'll create some real problems. And it's nice to keep it kind of in your pocket. Capturing that remaining Black bishop with the White knight would see 2 bishops against 2 knights. That imbalance, it's unclear who it favours in general, but when it's this open, probably the bishops. First, Magnus, though, he wants to play on both flanks, both sides of the board, activating his remaining piece. Some threats at some point of that dark square bishop jumping out the way and white's rook hitting some pawns, and he's just being greedy here. Magnus, he wants the positional advantage and he wants kind of the dynamic advantage of his pieces being more active.
All right, remember, there are 2 Blitz tiebreaks going on inside the arena. Duda and Pragg also playing, and let's quickly hear from Pragg's coach, Ramesh, about Pragg playing these tiebreaks.
Ramesh, coach of Pragnananda. Pragg isn't necessarily as comfortable with the faster time limits, is he?
Yeah, he's been getting used to this shorter time control. We have been, before the lockdown, we are largely focusing on playing standard time control. But since the lockdown, we have been focusing on rapid time controls as well. So he's getting, with each tournament, he's getting better, I guess.
And do you feel it's good enough to compete in this format?
It's too early to judge, make a judgment call on this. He's still an upcoming player. He has not yet reached his peak, I believe. So only when he's reached his peak, probably we should judge whether the peak is enough or not. I still believe he can grow.
This extra point is really important now for the total standings. Are you nervous at all as a coach?
No, I'm not really worried about the standings as such. To just compete at this level and prove his worth, that's what I'm more focusing on rather than the standings.
Thank you so much, Ramesh.
Okay.
And the bar is all the way over to Pragg's side with the white pieces in the first Blitz game against Jan-Christoph Duda. As Sverre says, at 1 point, it can turn out to be very important. 2 points for the winner in Blitz tiebreaks, 1 point for the loser. The bar is also over to Magnus Carlsen's side. Do you think he will win this first game, David?
It's beautiful for white. White's rooks look great right now, better than the black rooks, which are staring at a very well-protected white pawn. White's minor pieces, we've mentioned the white knight, the white bishop's beautiful, the white queen now joining the action. I just don't really see how Firouzja is going to hold this. It looks like tactically as well, the black knights are very poorly placed.
I have a feeling that Magnus is just going to rearrange his rooks and move them away from the left and maybe place them in the center and get ready for that kingside action.
Yeah, exactly. Magnus can do pretty much anything he wants right now. He does eventually trade off his knight for black's bishop. So now it is 2 bishops against 2 knights, but it's clear the bishops are better pieces, both on their longest possible diagonals. Black has those 2 knights stuck, sadly, defending each other, especially the black knight at the top of the board. Bad piece. Better pawn structure for white. Everything's in white's favour. But we have seen Magnus struggle to convert advantages in the playoffs against Duda yesterday, for example, in the Blitz. Clock time's ticking down as well. Firouzja needs to survive until they both have around 30 seconds, and then it might get a bit more random. But right now, it's just full control for white.
Okay.
Simon, what do you think here? Looking good.
Yeah, just the same as what you said, basically. It's looking great for white. I mean, you've even got ideas of bringing the queen in at some point. You've got everything. I mean, you've got the 2 bishops, you've got control of the open file, and black's knights cannot find any good squares. You've always got to look at your opponent's pieces, see their potential, and if you look at black's pieces, they don't really have any potential to improve. Think where those knights can move to. They can't really. They don't have any outposts, so it's a position which you would have thought Magnus would convert over to stats person, but I'd say 95% of the time, you think? Should we say? What do you reckon, 95? Are you 95 on white side?
95%,
95,
yeah,
let's go.
Mr. Firouzja at this point.
Yeah, maybe it is, but you got 100% score with your stats yesterday, Ivanka, so be more confident with your stat predictions, I'd say. But I think David mentioned the time is one of the only factors I think which could go against Magnus here. He is down to 1 minute 20 seconds now. So
Magnus smiling. Meanwhile, is that because of the position? Because it's so beautiful right now, or is he still listening to something a bit humorous?
He must be listening to something.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't seem to be distracting him from his play because, again, he's doing everything perfectly. And the great thing about this position for Magnus is that there's really no way for Alireza to kind of mix things up. The position is not that many minor pieces on the board, and there's no way to attack. Because yesterday we saw things go wrong when there was so much activity on the board. And Magnus just look at that. He's just steamrolling with those pawns on the right.
That's a pawn storm incoming.
Yes, I mean, the position is very easy to play, right? I mean, you literally just... Well, look at that. I mean, he even leaves his queen on pre. He's enjoying this a bit too much, I feel, at the moment. So those pawns are killers. And
this is unnecessary, but it's flashy and probably strong.
Yeah.
If the white queen is taken by the black knight right now, then the black queen falls, and that only favours white. The black queen looks like she has to run away. Maybe she swings herself across the board, or maybe she steps back one square, but that will only give Magnus a free hand to continue the attack.
Yeah.
Looking very, very good. Firouzja now below on the clock, about to tick under 1 minute. He's a speed monster. He can play 50 moves in a few seconds, but in this position, it's just about whether he survives that far.
Magnus did make big blunders in the Blitz against Duda yesterday. Is this a different Magnus we're seeing today? A lot more sharp, maybe?
He looks focused, despite the smiles occasionally. The one thing I will say about Magnus, okay, black's queen getting active. There are some threats now, but Magnus lately in tie breaks, he's not been doing so well. He lost against Duda yesterday in the tie breaks. Norway chess, he lost nearly every tie break. I think he lost 4 in a row, 4 in a row Armageddon matches at some point. So yeah, it's not been great for him. Not the usual kind of ruthless nature that we're used to, but here he's just so direct, going for checkmate, going for that black king.
Magnus is in his element in this type of position. He's just, all his pieces are working, and now just take a look at that pawn on e6. It's just bulldozing open the black position.
Yeah, I mean, the black king is devoid of any defenders, really. And there are tactical issues as well with black's knight at the top of the board. It's hanging by a thread. Does Magnus take back with a pawn here? Okay, I wasn't sure about this. It does allow black's pawn to move out the way. There's some defense maybe with his rooks on the 7th rank.
No, I thought he would take with the queen.
Yeah,
but
I think he'd take with the queen. Looks very straightforward, but it's still very strong. Or can Firouzja fight back here?
He's given a check.
Gives a check. The white king will move to the corner, and now Firouzja has to.
I mean, the one thing is that if it does get complicated when they're both under a minute, you mentioned it, this is where Firouzja might have his good chances. You know, he might actually excel over Magnus in these quick complications.
He doesn't have much time, though.
He's played it. The rook defending now.
But maybe you can just leave the queen on this square in some scenarios. Not sure whether you want to, as Magnus, do you want to complicate things? But where does white's queen go? If it retreats, the best you can get is a queen trade. So I think Magnus has to give his queen here if he wants to win this game.
And I wonder what the top going on with the time, because it does say that Firouzja's clock has run out. I'm pretty sure that is not the case, but
it would have popped up on the screen if it had.
Yes, it would have said.
Okay, but he's very short then. They're both getting under 30 seconds. We know that now. But what's he got to play here? He's either got to give up the queen, which is just instinctively risky.
There we go.
Well,
he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He's done it before. And Firouzja, seconds left on the clock.
It's getting complicated.
It's getting really complicated. This
coming in.
This is messy. This is really messy. I mean, you can take so many pieces here. Just guys at home, don't look at the computer. Try and calculate this position for yourself. It's a lot to calculate.
Black's knight is coming in. If you allow that black knight to come to f2 and check you, you will lose to what we call smothered mate. Okay, he gets rid of the knight. That was important. And now Magnus does give up his queen.
Wow, what a variation. And he's got bishop takes here, and it looks like this is the key move, right?
The killer move. That black rook in the corner is trapped, has to give itself up for this pawn. And now Magnus will simply take this rook. It's 2 rooks against a queen. Normally that's imbalanced, but here it's all about that remaining white pawn.
Yeah.
And also checkmate will end the game. That knight drops. It's 2 rooks and a bishop against the queen. It's too many material, too many pieces. This one is going to be Magnus. He can give a check with his rook here.
Yeah.
Promote a pawn. He can just move this rook that's attacked out of the way.
And the bishop does a great job, doesn't it, stopping any checks. You know, white's bishop is a key piece, and this is forcing the win now.
Yeah, Magnus makes a new queen. He's 2 rooks and a bishop up. 1 rook drops, but it won't be enough. White's king will run to safety.
Got a cross check here in a lot of positions. We talked about the cross check earlier. We might see that here. Black's trying to check out of trouble, but it's not going to work. No perpetual here.
Yeah, the checks will dry up. They'll run out in a couple of moves' time. The bishop jumps back to defend. White's king will move next. The white queen will jump back and defend. And there we go. Magnus takes the first Blitz game.
Wow, he now takes the lead in the match. Magnus Carlsen, Firouzja in 5 minutes. Blitz game number 2. He has to win, Firouzja, to take it to an Armageddon tiebreak. Wow, this is